warm welcome to our speaker, Balaji Pasumarthy, and all the participants on the call. So the format of the session, I'll just briefly share about Asia, the Social Entrepreneurship Accelerator in this webinar series. We will hear from some of the entrepreneurs from Asia who are attending this call. Then I'll introduce the speaker, Balaji. Balaji will have his prepared remarks, and then there'll be an elaborate Q&A with the audience. So to begin with, Asia, Asia stands for AFI, ITIC Foundation at IIT Hyderabad, Social Entrepreneurship Accelerator. It's a long one. So this is a Government of India, Department of Science and Technology funded accelerator. We began, so we are committed to the government to work with about 30 social entrepreneurs across 3 sectors: education, healthcare, agriculture, across 2 cohorts. The first cohort began in early April, and this is you'll be going to be winding up the first cohort end of this week. And then the second cohort, which will be given the current crisis and all that, we're going to make it a healthcare and wellness focused cohort that's going to begin. I think the applications for that are due till August 15th, and then the cohort itself will begin early September and go until the end of December. And this is a partnership between Action for India and IIT Hyderabad. And Action for India, if most of you seem to be from Bangalore on the call, you must be very familiar with TIE. So one way to look at us is what TIE does for general entrepreneurs globally, Action for India does for social entrepreneurs in India. It's a similar platform for fostering social innovation, social entrepreneurship, mentoring of social entrepreneurs. And the ITIC Foundation is the organization at IIT Hyderabad which oversees all the incubation, acceleration activities on campus. They have a Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship. They have a deep tech accelerator, incubator. They've got a fabless chip design incubator and so forth. So these are the 2 organizations that have come together, and we've got a lofty ambition for Asia. We want this to be a globally leading social entrepreneurship accelerator, something that could eventually become the go-to destination for any technology-enabled social entrepreneur from around the world who's looking to access emerging markets like India. It's a big goal. We're not going to get there overnight. We'll begin initially with a focus on India-based entrepreneurs and gradually expand our focus to other geographies. So that's about Asia. Let's get to hear from a few brief intros from some of the entrepreneurs that we already have here. Let's begin with Shakul Shankar from iSTEM.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Shakul. Good. If you can
okay.
Switch on the video for just a brief minute when you're speaking, that'll be great.
Yeah, sure. Can you see me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, hi Balaji.
Hi.
And hello everybody. This is Shakul. I am the co-founder of Inclusive STEM. At Inclusive STEM, we are trying to empower higher ed institutes and businesses to better support their students and employees with disability. We do it through our online AI-based portal, where we provide some of the automated services such as alternate format conversion and real-time captioning and so on. So this is all about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakul. Next, we go to Shahnaz Sheikh at AI STEM. Shahnaz, are you on the call?
Yeah.
Okay. We can barely see you. It's all come like whitened. There's something with the brightness and contrast of your screen. We can barely see you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's slightly better, but go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, Balaji. This is Shahnaz Sheikh, founder and CEO at AIGenix International Private Limited. And we are a business that invents technology for sustainable farming. We protect crops and plants without pesticide. We have developed a second generation primary reactive kind of artificial intelligence pest management devices. So we are selling these devices across India and exporting in other countries like USA and then Malaysia, Mauritius, Oman, etc. So till date, we have sold 3,000 plus devices. Wow. And we have generated revenue 2.5 crore from 2014 to 2019 till date. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shahnaz. Next, we go to Niranjan Karagi. Niranjan.
Hello, sir. Hello everyone.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Niranjan Gargi, founder of Nirnal Water Filter, based out of Belgaum, Karnataka. So we are manufacturing the portable water filter, which can fit for any PET bottle generally available into the market. And as of now, we have sold more than around about 2 lakhs plus units across Karnataka, India, different parts of other countries like African and other uh, water scarcity countries. And so that's all.
Thank you, Niranjan.
Thank
So this gives you a flavor, Balaji, and the rest of the audience in terms of the kind of entrepreneur that we have as part of a cohort. And we might hear from a few others as the call progresses. So now, yeah, let me introduce the speaker to the participants here. Balaji and I go a long way. We were undergrad buddies. We spent the same 4 years in the same hostel at IIT Madras nearly 30 years ago. And Balaji has gone on to do big things after graduating from then, and I'll share with you a few of those things. But the whole theme of this call, yeah, as you saw in the collateral that was shared with you, building high performance teams, high performance entrepreneurial, highly driven entrepreneurial teams. That's the topic that Balaji will share. Yeah, some of the his thinking and some of the experiments that he's done. Again, whenever you are part of a team, whenever you're part of an organization, whenever there is work that's involved, yeah, people typically, I mean, they try to separate the personal from the professional. And Balaji's thesis, counterintuitive at times, is that work need not be something that you look at in a different manner. Yeah, work should be a joy. And yeah, how do you have highly functioning teams? How do you kind of embody trust? How do you generate trust within team members? I think somebody needs to mute themselves. Just a minute. Sindhuja, are you there on the call?
Yeah, Sanjay.
Is it possible that, yeah, how do we mute all and then I'll unmute myself? Just a minute. Okay, cool. Can you hear me still, Sindhuja?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, so just to continue with what I was saying, yeah. So Balaji's stance is that work can be a joy. Work should be a joy, and yeah, he has done some experiments in terms of he's been able to demonstrate in terms of how you can foster trust in a work setting, and how steps like that can result in high functioning teams and highly driven teams, especially in the entrepreneurial settings. So that's the whole context of the talk. In terms of his, Balaji's background itself, yeah, his passion is to liberate business leaders from constraints so that they can be in their flow. A graduate from top institutes like IIT Madras and IIM Bangalore, Balaji has been an entrepreneur most of his career. His motivation to become an entrepreneur was the fact that he felt trapped and unmotivated in his first job and believed that there must be a better way to run organizations. His 23 plus years journey as an entrepreneur has been a quest to create teams which are liberated. Balaji started Golden Square, where he's an owner, with the objective of removing all the hassles that small teams face in having an office. Golden Square provides service private offices across 6 locations in Bangalore and has served 3,000 plus organizations. Golden Square's philosophy is joy at work, and its oldest member has been experiencing this for the last 24 plus years. Amazing. Balaji is the executive director of BNI, Business Network International, the Bangalore chapter, where several of the 2,500 members get 100% of their business through referrals, making getting new clients a pleasure. He, along with his partners, started BNI Bangalore in 2007. BNI is the world's largest professional networking organization. Balaji is the founder of Liberated Enterprise Creators, where he and other mentors help entrepreneurs and their teams be liberated at work. More than 200 plus entrepreneurs have already benefited in transforming their companies through this program. Balaji is also associated with Venture Catalyst, an integrated incubator with a network of angels who invest in curated startups. Venture Catalyst is democratizing angel investing. Through BNI, Golden Square offices, and venture capitalists, Balaji smoothens the process of getting clients, having a productive workspace, and getting funds for startups. So without further ado, over to you, Balaji. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for giving me this opportunity for speaking to entrepreneurs. It's always a pleasure, and especially social entrepreneurs. What a fantastic opportunity that you have given me. I personally believe, there's nothing better than to be an entrepreneur, especially to express yourself, manifest your innermost desires. Because what you can do as an entrepreneur is create your own world, right? You can create your own world. In fact, entrepreneurship is about making a difference, right? Especially when you talk about social entrepreneurship, it's about making a difference. And by definition, making a difference means being different. So how can you be different? You can only be different when you're true to yourself, because each of us is unique, and creating our own path and manifesting our own path. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. That's the beauty of starting your own journey. So congratulations to all the entrepreneurs over here for forging and creating a totally different path. So congratulations to you. So today the topic is about creating entrepreneurial teams. So what do I mean by this? So an entrepreneurial team is one which is highly engaged and very productive, and work actually is a pleasure. So when I say all of these things, the best way to understand what this means is actually to talk about what is not a highly engaged team, what is not pleasure at work, and what is not being productive at work. So let me take a personal story, something that really happened to me, and then possibly I'll take stories from my own organization and compare the two. So recently, I had, around a year back, I had bought a car, and we had, gone out of station. I was driving from Coimbatore back to Bangalore. On the way in Hosur, there was a sound from the engine, and the car suddenly, started slowing down. So we, kind of stopped the car, immediately called the salesperson who had sold us the car and said, this is what is happening. And he said, I can't help you, but you can reach out the call center. So I said, okay, can you do something about it, because we are in the highway. So can you get the call center person to call? He said, no, I can't do that. You need to call the call center. So can you share that number? So finally he shared that number. We called the call center, and the call center said, you just stay on the highway. We are going to send you a tow truck. So I tried to explain to the call center lady that, see, we are in Hosur, Bangalore is not that far. The car is moving. It's not accelerating, but it is moving. So we can drive slowly back home. And she said, no, just stay there, etc. So I said, no, its car is moving. Don't worry. We can go home, but you send the tow truck, or, send the mechanic so that he can examine the car and then do what is required. So in any case, we slowly drove back home, and then again called the call center, and the lady insisted that she send a tow truck. He said, why don't you send a mechanic, check out the problem and then do what's required. It might be a simple thing. You can check it at home, at my residence itself. She insisted that a tow truck has to be sent because we called her from a highway. So this kept on going, 4-5 calls. Finally, we said, okay, fine, send the tow truck, right? And so the tow truck came early in the morning, 7 a.m. in the morning, and he called up, so where's the car? I said, yeah, it's in the basement. Let me drive it up, because you can't enter the basement. So I drove up the car to the road where the tow truck was there. And there, the driver of the tow truck was standing there. I said, okay, fine, here's the car, take the keys. And he said, no, you have to wait, because my assistant has gone to pick up 2 bottles of water. We're just coming out of our residence, right? So why do you want, so I asked him, why? We don't need 2 bottles of water. Why do you want to give me 2 bottles of water? And he says, no, we have to give you 2 bottles of water. I said, okay, fine, we'll wait. So we waited for around 15 minutes. Finally, the assistant came with 2 bottles of water and gave it to us. Okay, so why? Because when you're stuck in a highway and a tow truck comes, the first thing that the tow truck is supposed to give you are 2 bottles of water. So here we were, 2 very upset customers with 2 bottles of water. So why was this happening? This was essentially happening because that was what the tow truck guy is supposed to do. There's a checklist, there's a standard operating procedure, and he has to deliver us 2 bottles of water. So anyway, frustrated and with the 2 bottles of water, we went back home. And that afternoon, we got a call from the call center saying that, did the driver give you 2 bottles of water? Okay. So I'm sure you would have experienced something similar, you know, when you deal with call centers, when you deal with large organizations and so on and so forth, right? So this is not alien. I think all of us have gone through this frustrating experience of getting even basic understanding from the, you know, the support people who are dealing with us. I'm sure in this experience, the tow truck driver knew exactly that we didn't need the water. He was just following standard protocol. Okay, everything was wasted and we had a very, very bad experience. Now, I just want you to contrast this to something which happened at one of our branches, or one of the Golden Square branches. So what do? We provide serviced private offices, co-working spaces, and we've been doing this for the last 24 years. So in one of our branches, there was an event happening, and a person who was attending the event, his name is Vignesh. So Vignesh, after attending the event, he went out to his, you know, to look for his car. His car was parked a few streets down, and when he went to the car, he noticed that the tire did not have any air. So he kind of was looking around frantically what to do and so on. One of our team members, his name is Murgesh, he noticed it. And Murgesh immediately went to Vignesh and said, why don't sir just come over to the lobby, you know, come over and we'll take care of it. So he brought Vignesh to the lobby, offered him a cup of tea, and he said, you know, there's a newspaper here, please just have a cup of tea, take care, you know, read the newspaper, I'll fix the tire for you. And within some half an hour or so, he got the tire fixed and handed over the keys to Vignesh. Now, you know, why did Murgesh do all of these things? This was not standard operating protocol for him. Nobody even expected him to do all of these things, yet he did it. And you know what? We wouldn't have got to know about it because that's what is expected out of Golden Square team members, that they create joy at work for our clients. That's what they do on a day-to-day basis. So how did I get to know about it? It so happened that Vignesh called my wife and told her this is what had happened. And that's the reason I know that Murgesh had done something like this. So compare the 2 instances, right? Murgesh was doing things not because of a reward. He was not doing this out of some kind of a, you know, quality control call that's going to happen later. He was just doing it because that's the right thing to do. If there is somebody who needs help, you go and help that person. It's as simple as that. So I'll give you another example just to draw the contrast. So this is what I mean by somebody is engaged, somebody is productive, and you know, they're doing it purely from the joy of doing something good. And that's the reason why he was doing it. So I'll give another example to show how much what I really mean by productivity. So in one of our other branches, you know, there was a need for the building facade to be painted. And this was something that the building owner had to do, and the team was following up with the building owner, get it painted, and he was delaying, and the delay was more than a year. That was not looking great. And the team was frustrated. They had done a lot of, you know, analysis, this, that, and you know, this is costing us. All of that debates were happening in the team. One fine day, the person who takes care of the front office, her name is Jagdishwari. So Jagdishwari took a call, so let's get this painted. And that weekend, she got it painted. By Monday morning, she actually posted the pictures of the painted facade to the rest of the team. None of us knew that this was happening. None of us, I mean, we were so delighted that this had happened. And what had she done? She actually negotiated with the vendor, and we were so surprised with the rates that she had negotiated with the vendor and got it done. Nobody felt bad that she had not taken approval, or she had, you know, not taken permission from somebody, you know, more senior than her, or none of us knew that this was happening. We were delighted. We were delighted that she was able to take this kind of a call and make it happen. That's what I mean by productive, engaged, and you know, somebody experiencing that joy at work, the pleasure of doing work. And so why were Murgesh and Jagdishwari and my rest of the team, why do they, you know, show this kind of engagement? And how come that large car company's driver showed exactly the opposite, right? Exactly the opposite. In fact, he knew he was not required to give 2 bottles of water, but he was compelled to do that. It's because of a very fundamental understanding of how we view people, how we view work, and how we think about our organizations. So what are the mindsets we have about these 3 things? Fundamentally, a lot of management practices have come from the assembly line. This is where organizations kind of started, right? Assembly line was the day when management was possibly invented. There was nothing called management before that. And a lot of thought process about the management is about thinking about a process which is designed by somebody at the top, like some engineer, some brain in the top, a boss, a big boss, thinks about, hey, these are the things to be done, and they design a process. And they figure out which machine should be there in the process. And then they think about the human beings, human resources that need to be there in the process. That's why the word human resources, right? You're just one component in an assembly line. So that is the thought process. And that's why you have things like standard operating procedures, job descriptions, job titles, and so on and so forth, because you're a part of an assembly line. And if you're in an assembly line and the only thing you're supposed to do is put a nut in a car, it's not a very interesting job. And therefore you need carrots and sticks to motivate that person to ensure that he or she puts that 100 nuts which are required in an hour. And if they don't, you give them a stick. If they do, you give them a carrot. And that's the way the whole system is designed. This is how teams are organized. So there is a better way of thinking about people, of work, and how you need to organize, the whole workplace. So what are these key things? So the first thing is to actually come from this attitude of trust, that I trust the person to be responsible and I trust the person to do the right thing. Okay, and this is the assumption. So maybe I'll just demo what it means, because otherwise it is just theory. So I'll just demo, maybe take a volunteer and kind of demo what this actually means when I say come from trust. So maybe one of the,
yeah, you can pick on
Shakir. Yeah.
Any one of the participants there.
Yeah. So maybe Niranjan or one of the ones. Yeah.
Sure. Niranjan, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Niranjan, would you like to volunteer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So this is the scenario that I'd like you to play out. Okay, so assume that I'm a sales manager. I'm your sales manager, right? And you're the sales guy. Is that okay? Okay, and I'm very upset. I'm very upset with the sales performance this month, and I want to, take you to task. Is that a good case study to perform, role play to perform? Okay, I suggest that everybody moves on to the speaker mode. If you're in the gallery mode, maybe you want. So go to the speaker mode so you can see us. Whoever is talking, then see us talking. Okay. So Niranjan, so for a few minutes, just pretend that you're a salesperson. I'm your sales manager, and we'll role play this. Okay. 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 So Niranjan, I want to speak to you for 2 minutes. Can you please come into my cabin?
Sure, sir. Please.
Come immediately. Niranjan, okay. What's happening? I just was looking at your numbers. This is pathetic. What are you doing over here? I didn't expect this kind of performance from you, Niranjan. What is this?
Okay. So we have been trying to execute into the market, but the response from the market is been.
So am I listening to excuses over here, Niranjan? You're not meant to be giving excuses. You're supposed to be giving results to me, right?
True, sir. But the current scenario due to the COVID is a bit different. So.
COVID, no COVID. Why do we need any of the salespeople if you have to give excuses? Get anybody to do this job. What is your role over here?
Okay.
Okay. So is that a typical conversation, guys? Would you agree this is a typical conversation between a sales manager and a salesperson? So
sure.
Niranjan, for a few minutes, tell me how you felt about this conversation.
Okay. So it was a wrong approach. First thing, there should be not excuse for any.
No. I want you to just talk about how you felt about it. In a sense, what was going on in your, when I was saying all of these things, what was going on in your mind? How were you feeling?
How to conversate the things?
Sorry?
How we need to conversate the things?
You couldn't converse, okay?
Yeah.
There was no conversation happening. What else was happening? What was the signal I was giving you? What was the signal I was giving you?
It was like demanding
Demanding, okay. And what more? What was my assumption about you?
assumptions in the sense like the thing should happen. There should not be an excuse. So there was a what we say, a target, a fixed thing
Sure.
given from the sales manager to the salesperson.
And what do I? So in my tone, etc. What was I assuming Niranjan to be? What kind of a person is Niranjan in my tone?
It was not a good sign from my point of view. Like it should be a perfect person.
Yeah. So I was actually saying that Niranjan is not a perfect person, right?
Not
And,
good person.
yeah, no good kind of a person. Okay, so let me role play this again, and this time let's see how the conversation happens. So Niranjan, I need a few minutes with you. Is it okay? Do you have the time? If you could come over to my cabin.
Yes, sir, sure.
Sure. I just wanted to talk to you about the sales numbers this month. Just wanted to make you aware that because of the COVID situation, all of these things, cash flows are very, very tight. So it's very important to meet these targets. Otherwise, this might create a lot of problems in terms of paying salaries and so on and so forth. I just wanted to make you aware of this. So Niranjan, so what are your thoughts about how do we get these numbers to happen? What are your thoughts about that?
Okay. I'm sorry, sir, for not getting the numbers at initial.
Yeah, go ahead. Did we lose Niranjan? Niranjan, we just lost the video for a few seconds. So maybe you could just repeat that.
Sorry, come on.
Yeah, we lost the video for a few seconds. So you could just repeat that last sentence.
Okay. So we can work on the ground level more for the advertisement and other sales promotional so that we get the target and reach the maximum number what we had discussed for the sale.
Is there anything that you need from my side in terms of support or any other thing that you need to make the numbers happen?
Yes, sure, sir. Because the main thing is like due to the COVID situation, we are unable to reach in person.
Okay. So what is that one thing you feel we can do, so that we can actually meet the targets despite the COVID situation?
At this present scenario, I would suggest that we could go more digital marketing and other things.
Okay.
Social media to reach the maximum people to get that number.
Okay, super. So, so you saw the movement happening in this second conversation, right? So how did you feel in the second conversation, Niranjan?
Correct. Such a second conversation, like it was more a win-win situation for sales manager as well as the salesperson.
And what was my assumption about you as a person?
It is like a friendly conversation it was in.
Okay. And how did you feel? Did you feel that I value your role in the team?
Definitely, sir. It was a valued conversation.
Yeah, super. So that's just to demo. I just kind of said, start from trust, assume that the other person is responsible, right? So this is just a simple example of how coming from trust, coming from this belief that you have responsible people in your team changes the whole dynamics of the conversation, whole nature of the conversation, and you get a totally different results from the same person. Niranjan, for example, of course, this was a role play, but you saw how he was reacting earlier to the earlier conversation, how he was reacting in the, or how he was actually more solutions focused, kind of getting engaged into what we can do rather than, trying to find excuses and so on. So just a simple demo of what can happen if you as a manager, you as a leader, you as the person with the authority come from trust and responsibility, assuming trust and responsibility, and how the whole thing changes. So yeah, so one minute, yeah. So the other key, so if you really look at it, the reason why Murugesh and Jagdishwari were able to do whatever they did was because they felt that trust and responsibility that was assumed for them by the organization and the team members. They never hesitated to take that call, even getting the whole building painted. They didn't hesitate because they knew that their judgment would be respected and they have the backing of their team and the leadership and so on and so forth, that we will totally honor their initiative. And so that is the kind of culture, that's the kind of atmosphere we need to create so that this happens. The second mindset is really about how do we view the organization. So like I said, a lot of these management principles have originated in the assembly line. So is there a better way of thinking about organizations? And the way to think about organizations is you think about organizations like living beings, okay, living organisms. A good way to think about it is think about a forest. So think about the forest, right? Forest is, there's no effort, but there's so much life, right? Almost things grow effortlessly, right? Isn't it? It's a vibrant ecosystem co-created by all those creatures who are living there. A plant, okay, the bee, all of them need each other to grow. Each of them needs each other to grow. Yet there is no boss driving them, right? They're co-creating it. And people are doing it for their own internal reasons, intrinsic motivators. They're doing it for their own reasons. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to contribute. They're doing it for that reason. So the idea is to think about organizations like living organisms and see how can we create organizations like that, keeping that as the thought process. Okay, so, and it is possible to do that. I mean, there are amazing number of organizations, not just Golden Square, where this has happened and some superb results happening. And so in fact, so let me just maybe give another example to illustrate how this organization design can make such a dramatic impact. So one of the entrepreneur friends of mine, her name is Shweta. So she once reached out to me and said, I'm constantly getting bogged down by team related issues, people bickering about each other, interdepartmental conflicts and so on and so forth. So she had a team of 30 at that time. This happened around 4 years back. And she is into website development. So she came to me saying that, I need help, need some suggestions on how do we deal with these people related issues. So I asked her a few questions about how she had organized her team. And she had done it like a typical organization. Nothing, you can't point a flaw in that because she had a sales team. She had a website developers team. She had, the technology team, which was into content management and stuff. She had an accounts team, the HR team, and so on and so forth. Superbly designed in org chart and a department and so on and so forth. She had around 300 clients. So I gave her 3 suggestions, which I thought she'll never implement. So what were those 3 suggestions? The first suggestion was, I told her, divide those 300 clients into 5 groups, okay? And use some logic. The logic can be that they're all part of maybe the complexity of the website or maybe the industry vertical, something which makes sense to divide them into that many groups. So divide the clients into 5 groups and divide your whole team into 5 groups. But each group needs to have all the skills required to handle those customers. So in a group, you have a few people who are good at interacting with customers, good at the website development part, the tech part, and so on and so forth. So each group has to be self-contained, right? The second suggestion I told her was, you get rid of all the titles, all the job descriptions, get rid of it. Okay, no more job descriptions, no more titles. Okay, and then I told her, get rid of individual incentives as well. You can have team incentives, but it has to be only team incentives. Why? Because then it becomes a teamwork. The third suggestion I gave her was, don't go to the office, disappear from the office. Okay, so you can, because of these 3 suggestions, you can imagine I never expected her to carry it through because it was quite dramatic, drastic for her to implement. In any case, this was a short conversation I had with her. Around 3 months later, we were sitting in a group, some more BNI members, entrepreneurs with me, and she just said, remember Balaji, you had this one-to-one with me? I've implemented all the suggestions that you shared, and I'm getting such amazing results. And she started telling me what kind of results she had got. So she said, nowadays, if a customer has a problem with the website, earlier the sales team used to complain to to me about the developer and so on. So now what's happening is the developer and the sales people are going and meeting the client face to face, and very quickly they're sorting out the issue because there's so much clear communication. This never happened before because the software developer used to refuse to move out of in front of his laptop. Then she told me something even more dramatic. So she said we were appointing some franchisees in interiors of second tier cities in Karnataka, and we were running through a deadline kind of a thing. And you know what happened? The software developer said, don't worry, we will go and close these deals for you. Imagine a software developer volunteering to do something like that. It had never happened before. And she gave me so many other stories about how her team had totally got transformed just because we changed the design of the organization. That's how powerful organization design can be. So thinking about organizations from this aspect of, trust, and thinking about them in terms of a living entity makes all of this difference. Intrinsic drives, then kind of kick in, and then you start doing what is right rather than, because some SOP tells you to do something. The other thing, very important thing, which kind of holds all of these things together is a powerful purpose. So what do I mean by this? Because a powerful purpose, a meaningful purpose actually acts like a glue for the team, because they understand this is the reason why the team is there together, and they also get a rationale for taking decision, a criteria for taking decisions. For instance, the criteria. So what's for Golden Square, our purpose is joy at work. It's about joy at work for our team members, for our clients, for our vendors. They need to feel joy at work, right? So it's a very simple criteria. Anytime a team member has to decide, they just have to say, is this creating joy at work for everybody concerned? And so Jagdishwari would have asked that question to herself, when I'm getting this building painted, is it creating joy at work for everybody concerned? And she has all the data with her, right, to kind of conclude that, is it joy at work for others or not, everyone concerned. So it's as simple as that. So it kind of acts like a glue. It acts like how do you evaluate whether this is the right thing to do or not. In fact, the biggest challenge we're facing in Golden Square is actually happening right now. Because of this COVID situation, people have started working from home, teams have started downsizing and all of that. And, it just amazes me how our team is kind of raising up to this occasion and taking steps to reduce costs and so on, trying to, battle this out. It's just amazing. In fact, the team is right now working on something very ambitious, and we pull, so the assumption is it's not about space for us, right? It's about joy at work. So irrespective of where our clients are, we can provide joy at work for them and make them be in their flow while we take care of all the unnecessary stuff which hampers their productivity. We used to, in Golden Square, we always had a strong support team in terms of helping people, our clients with their spreadsheets, their back office kind of follow-up work, vendor sourcing, automating spreadsheets and things, a lot of these things. And our team is actually now creating products out of these things and saying, hey, let's, talk about this with a lot more urgency with our clients, and let's talk, let's not depend too much or exclusively on revenue which comes from the space, that is cabins and conference rooms and on all of that. So this is the ambitious project which our team is, and we are calling it the acceleration team. So we want to accelerate our clients, whether they are working from home or our own offices, doesn't really matter. It's all about productivity. It's all about joy at work. So that's just an example of how this strong sense of purpose of propels the team and gives it the glue so that we can move forward. So to sum up, it's really about having that strong purpose, thinking about people as responsible and trustworthy, and looking at the organization design not as an assembly line, but as a living organism. and getting the intrinsic drives into the play. So that really, Sanjay, is what I wanted to share today, and we can open up for some interactions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Balaji. And we will open up the questions to the audience. You can either raise your hand or you can start jotting down the question in the chat section. Again, as I mentioned, this is a new topic. Not many people even pay attention to that there's a new way you can deal with colleagues, team members, the new way to think about a new design for the organization. They're always thinking in terms of, hey, how do you increase the top line, bottom line, and all those kind of things. So I'll start with a question, and this is a kind of a utopian new world that you're trying to create. It's great, and you've given lots of examples in terms of how people have found value in that. Share with me maybe just one example where people attempted to experiment with a new way and it didn't work. And on closer reflection, you figure out what happened because of which it didn't work.
In fact, I have not really come across where it has not worked. I have actually come across where it worked and then you kind of step back because of, because you couldn't get the buy-in from others. Okay, so that, because I'll tell you, it's such a human nature. There's such a human nature that you reciprocate how you feel. So if you feel like so coming back to the trust aspect, right? If you feel that somebody is not trusting you, you kind of live up to that expectation of not being trusted. If you feel trusted, and if you feel that somebody actually expects a lot more than they live up to that expectation. Whatever your expectation is, it comes true. So I've seen it again and again that it's so simple. Like Shweta, she just heard me for 15 minutes and she started implementing it. And of course, later she attended the program after 3 months when I started sharing a lot of things. She attended the program and she did a lot more than those 3 months. But the point is, you start seeing these results immediately. Like the conversation I demoed right now, right? Just a shift and it starts happening. Of course, it doesn't happen when you pretend. So it doesn't work when you pretend. So if you're so it's not about play acting. It's really about believing and walking the talk. So for example, if I was upset with somebody like Jagdishwari, how come you didn't take my permission before getting the building painted? That's the end of it. Nobody else will take initiative afterwards, right? And if by chance there was a mistake which happened while getting the building painted, and if I was upset about that, again, people wouldn't have taken another initiative, right? As bold as that. Because so the key idea is, I come with the intention that this person is responsible. Mistakes can happen, but the mistakes would have happened because of 3 other reasons, not because of the intention. They would have happened because of 1, because they didn't have the skill, or they didn't have the aptitude, or 3rd, they didn't have the awareness. They just didn't know that this was what was expected. So that when I say come from that intention of trust and trust and responsibility, or trust and you're a responsible person, that's what I mean by this. And when we come from that, you see amazing transformations happening, a different set of behaviors happening from the same people.
Is there a particular size of an organization where this is likely to succeed more than other, very large, very small? Yeah. What is your experience been?
Okay, so I've been a student of this, for a long time. I've been studying organizations like this after all, because you can't take too much risk, without, and I like to read, I like to kind of absorb. I want to defend as well. For example, somebody questions me, I'd like to defend my point of view. So I'd like to so I've been researching these organizations from a long time. My first, what shall we say? I was doing a lot of things by doing things earlier, but my first confidence kind of way of doing things came from the book Maverick by Ricardo Semler.
Yes,
I totally recommend reading that book. And of course, Ricardo Semler also, was doing what he felt right in his gut. So he didn't have any management theory to back this up, right? I totally recommend that if you're interested in this, to read a book called Reinventing Organizations by Frederick Laloux. And this is a brilliant book. about, because he actually puts this in perspective. I think even the machine versus living organism paradigm, I picked it up from Frederick Laloux. So he actually talks about how organizations are evolving over a period of time, and what you see thinking of organizations like living organism is something that you'll see a lot more in the future. And okay, you talked about the size of organization. So Ricardo Semler's Semco Corporation is a huge company. I don't know the exact number because they grow so fast. I mean, they are more than 40 years old since what Ricardo Semler started all of these things. I think they employ, I'm sure, more than 20,000 people, if not more. There are several examples in the book Reinventing Organizations of several large companies. One of the case studies that I get my people in the course to read is Birdzog. Birdzog is a nursing organization in Netherlands, and around 7-8 years back, they were already 10,000 people plus, and they were like the most efficient, productive nursing organization in the whole of Netherlands. It works. It works across the board. I've seen this happen in manufacturing companies. I've seen it in service companies. Doesn't really matter. It's just a way you look at people and the way you look at organizations.
Okay. There are 38 participants in this call, and just for the record, Balaji, this is the most well attended in the past 3 months ever since we began the webinar series. So congratulations to you to make this happen. So if folks on this call, they say, hey, this is great. I'm hearing all these things and I'd love to experiment. What could the new outcomes be when I adopt this approach? So how do they begin? What baby steps can they take if they want to experiment on this path?
See, I think, okay, what's the baby step you can take? I think even, I used to do all of these things, right? In terms of, annual appraisals and job descriptions and all of these things. I think the first time I did something like this was get rid of the annual appraisal. I just got fed up of it. So you could actually start with something as simple as that. And the next thing I did was when somebody came saying that, hey, time for annual increments and so on, I just said, why don't we just figure it out? And especially start from the top. So when the senior person came to me, I said, I think you know the numbers, you have the data, you know what's working, what's not working, you also know your contribution. So why don't you just figure out your own salary, right? You're a responsible person to do it. Don't ask me. And whatever you say is fine with me. That's how it started, as simple as that. And now my team sets their own salary. They discuss among themselves and set their own salaries. So, but in the beginning, it's as simple as that. Just start with that assumption of I can trust you.
This seems revolutionary for employees to set their own salaries.
I'll tell you how amazing it is. So in 2008, we were going through a terrible recession at that time, right? And suddenly we had a situation where occupancy rates were going down. And those days, if you know Bangalore had had the UBCT coming up. Construction was happening in Vithalmalya Road, where one of our branches is located. So we had a valet who used to, and a shuttle. So the driver, the valet used to, use the shuttle to pick up our clients from Kaban Park, which was a fair, at least 1.5 kilometers away, where the clients used to park their cars. So when the team came to me saying that, this year I think we cannot have increments because the cash flows are very tight. Then I told them, you know what, instead of this, why don't we do something else? We'll postpone the hikes, right? Meanwhile, so 3 months, let's postpone it. But in the meanwhile, let's figure out how to get this cash flow. So the team was having discussions on how to generate extra profits out of extra cash flow out of the business. And the driver, what his suggestion was? He said, from now on, I'm going to stop driving the car. I'll get the clients to come to the branch, right? And I'll go drop the car and walk back from Kaban Park to the Golden Square Vithalmalya Road branch. And imagine, we might have saved 2,500 rupees or whatever in a month from that one thing, but look at that initiative this driver is giving, and he's sacrificing. He wants to walk so many times down the road and get this car, whether rain or sunshine, he's prepared to do that. So it's amazing once you kind of believe in people. It's just amazing what kind of things they'll come up with.
Okay, cool. We have a few questions already in the chat section. Let's begin with Shakul. Shakul, over to you.
Hi, Balaji. Thank you so much for all the suggestions. So we actually started with all this and still trying to do so. So we are a very early age company. We have four co-founders and 5 more people, right? And we've been working remotely. So we had a full faith on people. So we have a couple of engineers, a couple of AI scientists, and a UX UI developer right now.
Yeah.
We gave them chance for everything. Like we told in the very beginning to all our software engineers, if you want to be in the business meeting, come take decision, because you are the first employee of us and you are no lesser than a co-founders. We want to make this trust, and we are all on the same page. We never created all these positions like CEO, CSO, or whatever. We are all like co-founders and people, like the core team, and nothing else. But the thing that we have been realizing that people are coming up with, sort of not to believe excuses. So one such excuse was like, I didn't have the electricity today, so I couldn't work the whole day. My internet wasn't working. And obviously we are a young company. We couldn't give them, we couldn't pay their internet bills or take care of all those things. My laptop couldn't work. They are coming with up with the excuses like, so if someone is having a small blocker, so if I ask X person, reach out to Y and figure it out, they are delaying that call. If I ask them on Wednesday, they don't follow it up till Saturday, when the next time I go and ask, did you actually reach out? Oh no, yeah, I will have a meeting tomorrow or something.
Sure.
I don't know how to deal with these kind of scenarios, and we've never been harsh to them, or not that we want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So the couple of thoughts over there, and I may not know exactly how you can find a solution, Shakul, because each situation is so unique and so different. So I won't kind of pretend that I know an answer to this, but maybe just share some of the thoughts which I might, which might have got triggered, right? So for the so one thing, okay, what would I have done in a similar situation? Mm-hmm. I might just keep at it, saying that, what, this is really important. For example, internet connection is not there. So, we do need that internet connection, so that we really want your time. You're very valuable to the team. And if you're not here, our delivery will suffer, and so on and so forth. There's something similar to the mock call that I was having, where I was talking about the importance of the sales numbers. You remember the mock call that I just did?
Right.
Yeah. So something like that, because this is the awareness part. If people are not aware of why something is so important, yeah, sure. So that's why I said I don't know exactly where the gap could be, because it
during the one-on-one, we explained them, guys, these are the responsibility. We never measure your hours. Whenever you work, if you want to work 3 a.m., it's fine. Work at 3 a.m.
Super.
But if we are if you are responsible for something at this deadline, because we are also responsible for other people, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you will have to deliver it no matter what.
Keep at it. So you're already doing it, keep at it. Okay. So on the other hand, there's another thing I'll tell you. So while I said start with trust and start with, responsibility, the assumption of responsibility, we don't want irresponsible people in the team. You get my point? Yeah. So at a particular point, you'll notice, or you'll know that somebody is actually not responsible. Okay, and we have in Golden Square, we have zero tolerance for irresponsibility. Okay, so because everything is designed based on responsibility, right? So if we have irresponsible people, in fact, now the team itself, it doesn't tolerate irresponsibility. But that is something again that you need to set as a cultural norm, that you cannot be irresponsible. You might have a lack of skill, you might have a lack of whatever, but that doesn't mean that you need to be irresponsible. Okay, and so this is something again as a culture you could be firm about. Okay, so another distinction I'd like to make. it's not about being nice. Okay, it's not about being nice or goody-goody and things like that. It's not about that. It's about where you come from. Are you coming from a stand that I look at you as an adult, I look at you as a responsible person, and I expect that from you. Okay? Are you coming from, yeah. So it's not about being goody-goody. It's about being, from what angle are we coming from? It's about that. So if you're frustrated, you just go ahead and show your frustration. However, one very important thing to do is kind of show frustration on the situation, not the person.
So I'll just take another 30 seconds and finish it up.
Sure.
Just to share another example, so earlier, as you said that no JD, nothing else, we actually did the same. So when we hired these people, we told them, these are the responsibility and this and that, and this is what you're supposed to do. We never even get them a contract, the usual contract that you cannot work anywhere else, or you'll have to sign this very document and all. Recently, we found out that both of our engineers who were working for us actually had another job in their hand. We figured it out in between, like 3-4 months ago. So I had the discussion with the rest of the team, guys, now we should come up with this kind of document. And as soon as we issued that document, both of them resigned. They're like, guys, we can't sign this because we have another job. And when we asked, why did you not tell us earlier? They were like, yeah, but it was never mentioned in your contract, we can't work anywhere else.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that is pure unethical. And so you don't, I'm not saying bad things won't happen if you have a living organism kind of view to the organization, but it will reduce quite a bit. It can reduce quite a bit because how much can you monitor, right? How much can you monitor? How much can you this thing? In spite of all the checks and balances and audits and so on, you had the PNB scam happening, right? Okay, so it's not about things can go wrong and therefore let's change our thought process about people or organizations. It's about what kind of people do you want? What kind of a culture do we want? We want a culture of responsibility and so on. If somebody is being irresponsible, we don't tolerate it.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. One quick question. When you talk of startups in particular, in the West and even now in India, there is this role of this visionary, charismatic leader who's kind of who knows everything or who points the direction for the organization. The world or the scenario that you're painting is, hey, we're all equal in some sense, and we take into account each of your input and so forth. So is there a kind of a, how do you
dilemma there? Sure. In fact, so maybe again, a couple of perceptions over here. I think very much, especially in a startup scenario, the entrepreneur's vision, their internal drives is what essentially creates the organization, right? Very much so. And as an entrepreneur, the founding team, what you believe in, you need to be so articulate about it that you attract the kind of people who believe in what you believe. So it's very important to create that. Okay, be very, very, that, your personal drive, the personal conviction about what's happening, that's the anchor. That is the anchor around which the whole organization gets built. So yes, coming from that angle of visionary, yes, it is the entrepreneur, especially in a startup, the whole thing gets built around that. However, once you reach a particular stage, right, you have a team and so on, so the purpose is the same. So then what happens is, you, as an entrepreneur, you need to transcend it. Then you say, the organization is different from me. Organization has its own life. Okay, so organization has its own purpose. And you embed that purpose so strong in the organization that the rest of the team will make it happen. In which case, you don't need a visionary leader always to kind of guide, make it through. In fact, there are several studies which kind of shows we are kind of hardwired for this visionary kind of leader and a strong leader and so on. It's there in our the way we have evolved. After all, our modern management and so on, a modern most of our human existence has been in the jungles and in the fighting and so on and so forth. So we're kind of hardwired for a strong leader and a strong and the leader is everything kind of a thing. So it's interesting. In these organizations, in liberated organizations that I call, the other word you can Google from reinventing organizations is steel organizations and so on. it's very interesting. What people say is you need a dictator in the beginning to create a culture like this. Okay, you need a dictator in the beginning to create a culture like this, and then after that the culture will take care of itself, right? I mean that because then people know exactly that this is what is expected in terms of time. And there's and the whole idea is once, after a certain time, the leader just doesn't know what's happening. In a sense, he's so far away from the action, from customers, from day-to-day action and so on, he might actually not know what's the required thing to do. In fact, I loved, I think, Sergey Brin of Google, I think in one of his interviews, he was talking about, somebody asked him, so what is Google's plans in the next 5 years? Somebody asked me. And he said, I don't know, but there are smarter people than me who are working on it. Okay, so, and I think that's true, because if you look at all their, the amazing product they come up with every now and then, it's not necessarily that it was thought about by Sergey or one of the founders. So, and that's how I think as the organization grows, we have to make sure that everybody is getting into the co-creation of it.
Again, a layman's reaction to some of the concepts that you've shared here. Hey, this is all fine and dandy. Yeah, this could work for a government organization or a not-for-profit organization, touchy-feely and all fluff and so forth. But if you're hard charged, aggressive, you're a startup, there's so many resource constraints, time constraints, you're trying to garner market share, generate revenues, raise funding. You need to be hard charged. You can't deal with all this. I mean, you can't have this kind of perspective. What's your retort to that?
So let me tell you how, money, power, large organizations are getting hammered by, lean and, nimble and volunteer-driven organizations, right? I mean, the famous examples are, the whole open source world, whether you take Linux, you take Apache Foundation, the Apache servers. I mean, there was big money kind of competing with them. Microsoft couldn't win the battle, IBM couldn't win the battle, but these are the open source products, built by volunteers out of intrinsic motivation, no reward, and they are the ones ruling the internet now, right? I mean, that's evidence for you. If you want to make an impact, you don't necessarily have to look out for big money and this, that. I mean, there are much more efficient ways of organizing teams, organizing people, which much better impact. So it's not about not being bothered about numbers or not being bothered about, it's not about that. There's smarter ways of organizing people. That's the competitive advantage that we need to tap into. If volunteers could defeat Wikipedia, if Wikipedia could defeat Microsoft and Encarta and Britannica, right, with all their intellectuals and money, power, and so on, why not tap into that kind of know-how? So one of the assumptions is, even if you're paying salaries to your team members, you treat them as volunteers. You treat them as volunteers. They need to be doing things purely because they love doing it. They like it, and there's a drive. So they're not doing it because of some guideline from somewhere. They're doing it purely because that's the right thing to do. Going back to my example of what Murugesh did or what Jagdishwari did, that's what they did. They did it because that's the right thing to do.
Okay. We have a question from Manoj Patel. Manoj, over to you. Manoj, are you on the call? Just a minute. He wrote something. Yeah, he's there. Okay, until he raises his voice or his hand again. And what can be the smallest? Assume it's kind of a larger organization, and the individual on this call is maybe the head of a particular division within that organization. Is it possible that just your division in the larger organization can behave in this elevated manner and everybody else is doing their things in the old way? Is that possible at all?
Yeah, it is possible. You may not see amazingly dramatic change, but you'll certainly see a lot of change. Purely because, like I said, there are three components to it, right? Treating the person from an angle of responsibility and trust. Just starting with that, you can see change in how people respond to you, right? The sales manager versus the salesperson example that I took, you'll see that change immediately happen. Even though we are not banished or abolished the role of the sales manager, you still have, you still see the change, the equation between the manager and the salesperson changes, right? And I think it's very important then, if a sales manager is convinced that this is how he wants to lead his team, that he becomes the insulation between the rest of the organization and his team. So that becomes his role. I'm going to insulate my team members from the rest of the organization and get the best out of them. And it is about getting the best out of them, really. It's not about sacrificing productivity. It's about actually increasing productivity. Get the best out of people.
Okay, okay, cool. And is there a, so we talked about the mindset, the shift that needs to happen in the mindset.
Yes.
That's very clearly one big aspect of it. And in terms of this financial, when you talk of work, yeah, there is salary, there's compensation, there's stock options and all that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit in terms of this financial element with this new way of looking at things.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the thing is, so, I mean, sharing my, like I shared the driver's example, right? How he's kind of pitching in to save, get some profits into the company. I mean, even during this COVID times when our cash flows are severely hampered in our branches, the way our team members are, for example, today we were having a call and one of the team members was sharing that one of the things she did was talk to a colleague of her who was kind of new to the organization and tell her that, you know, since you're saying that you're not yet productive and into the job, why don't you take a leave of absence for 3 months, right? And when we are back in action, you can come back. We don't have an HR department to be doing these, but our team members proactively are doing it with, you know, with each other, dialogues. And in another branch, they actually helped one of the team members get placed in another organization because they said, hey, this way we can save on the cash flows over here. And, you know, and tomorrow, if you like to come back, come back. So there is no planning, there is no, you know, central diktat that this is what has to happen. And the reason why they're able to do this is because the numbers are evident with them. They know the numbers. The team is able to discuss these numbers with each other, and they're able to take these calls with each other. You know, so that's the kind of engagement you get once. I mean, if you reach that kind of transparency with them and so on. So people become very responsible once they are treated responsibly.
Awesome. I think we have Manoj on the call. Yeah, Manoj, over to you.
Hello, Balaji. This is Manoj Patel from
Yep.
FX Impact Financials.
Manoj, can you just switch on your video, please, for a minute, or if you're able to?
All right.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Hello, Balaji. Is it good for providing the rewards to the team and making a difference in their performance? You know, how is it?
Okay.
And
so yeah, very good question, Manoj. So it's really about, you know, getting the motivation happen from intrinsic motivators rather than extrinsic motivators. Okay. So from that angle, what does a reward mean? Okay. So the idea is there's a difference between doing something for a reward versus doing something for the sake of mastery. Okay. For example, when you play a game, I mean, all of us like to play games, right? And when we play a game, we want to have the scoreboard. Why do we need the scoreboard? And because we want mastery, we want to do something better than what we did before. Okay. And when you do something better than before and you're recognized for that, you know, you are a master at what you do and you're recognized for that, you know, that is internal motivation. So mastery is internal motivation, while doing something for the sake of the reward is an external motivator. So there's a fine line there, and it's very good to understand the difference between the two. So if it is a big reward, in fact, it might diminish your productivity. Okay, and there's a lovely video, you can check it out. There's a TED talk by Daniel Pink. There's a book called Drive by Daniel Pink, you can read it. And he actually marshals evidence from science and says rewards have a negative correlation with productivity and performance. Okay, so that's the key idea. So doing so if your reward is about recognition. It's about recognizing a person because they're good at it. That is our internal motivator, and go ahead with it. But if they are doing it for that sake, then your productivity is going down.
And how much percent it would work for a team usually?
Recognition is just a certificate. So recognition can just be a certificate saying that you have mastered this. That's it.
Right.
A ribbon. That's it. Okay, which doesn't mean that you don't want to pay people fairly and so on. That's a different question altogether. How much do you pay? How do you compensate them? That's a different question altogether. But the point is, once you kind of design a compensation system, you're not working for the sake of compensation. You're working because you love to do the work. That's the idea over here.
Okay. Balaji, the next question is, when you talk of doing things in this new way, when you talk of work, so what are the various stages of a particular employee involved with an organization, right? You have to recruit him. You have to give him some work streams that he owns. He interacts in a particular manner with his peers, with his superiors. He could get promoted if he does well. Sometimes he might even get fired. So how do you do things differently? Is there a salience in this?
Yeah, so what we do when we recruit, in fact, we do a lot of de-selling, okay? We say, hey, you know what? We don't have a career path. We don't have, titles. In fact, your family will ask, what's your designation? And there's no designation over here. You can choose whatever designation you want, okay? If it pleases you. In fact, one of my, front office people, she said, okay, can I call myself the queen of the organization? I said, go ahead. Doesn't matter. Okay, whatever pleases you. Okay, because these are all external motivators, so we don't believe in that. However, it doesn't mean there's no role clarity. Within the team, everybody knows what's to be done and who does what. Okay. However, we don't pigeonhole people. In a sense, we don't say, as a salesperson, you're only supposed to do this. Okay. So in fact, in our team, we have people who do sales as well as operations. Some people don't do operations, but they get involved in marketing. It's because that's what they're good at. Each person has unique skills, has unique talents, and the idea is to make that flower, right? So that's the key thing. So the way you do it when we recruit, we are setting these expectations. Of course, there is a requirement from the team that we are filling this gap. So they do say we are recruiting you for this reason. This is the minimum thing that we expect from you. But as time goes, you can define your own role. Okay, you can figure out what you want to do. And so for example, we have people in our team who joined the organization, for serving tea, coffee in our, service private offices. One of them is actually taking care of new projects. He negotiates with vendors, does the project management and so on. We have another person who's actually taking care of sales in a particular branch. And they have not grown into these roles because of some kind of a formal, learning programs or something like that from the HR department. They learned on the job. They learned from each other. There's a culture of teaching each other. And that's how they've grown in these different roles. That's essentially, so believe in the innate, need for a human, for a person to grow. Every person wants to grow. They want to care for their family. They want to do better in life. They want to pick up skills. They want to be, seen as somebody contributing to the team and to the organization. And these are all innate natures. They're human nature. Somewhere down the line, we kill it. So just let it flower like a forest. How things just grow. Today I was walking in the terrace, and in there was a small crack, and there is a plant growing over there. Right, this innate feeling to grow is so. It's just there. Just tap into that.
Okay. We've all, in the discussion thus far. So probably one of the important starting points is for the head of the division or head of the organization to say that yes, this seems interesting, and I want to take that first step. What have you seen? You said about 200 organizations which have started on this journey, and
yes.
25 of them are fully in there. So when you look at them, what did it take for that individual, the decision maker, either at the division or the organization level, to say that I'll do this? So did he have to be exposed to other individuals? Did he have to read anything? Did he have to go through a workshop? What was the prerequisite for him to jump over?
Yeah, I think when you read some of this literature of these case studies of other organizations doing this, almost everywhere, including me, it was a sense of frustration that work cannot be like this. There has to be a better way of doing work. That sense of deep frustration. Hey, work has to be a pleasure. Okay, so that's my personal motivation. That's, I think, essentially what has triggered most of the, like even Ricardo similar. He had a heart attack, and earlier he was having everything being decided by the super boss and so on. And in the hospital bed, he decided that from now on, life cannot be like this, and team members need to decide things, and you can't depend on me to decide stuff. And he created this whole Semco organization. So in the starting, I mean, a lot of these case studies about that feeling that there is a better way to do this. Even in my, the 200 odd entrepreneurs who have gone through our program, in the beginning, it was just, I was just sharing offhand and so on. And some people just kind of caught on to this and started implementing stuff. Later, I realized that some others possibly would need a nudge. They would need some more, success around them to kind of start taking other steps. And so the formal program, I'll say formal, I mean, the structured program. And now I've also started something called the leagues, Liberated Entrepreneurs Advisory Groups. So I've been experimenting with this for the last 3 months. So here we have a group of 10 entrepreneurs who come together. They like all of this, and we meet once a month, and we have projects. There's some 20 different projects identified. So they pick one project and they implement it. They read some material, watch some videos, etc., read it up. And then they implement it, they come back to the group and they share what they have done. And they also use each other for brainstorming. So I've developed some techniques for brainstorming. I've developed some smart tools. There's 15-minute coaching tools that you can actually coach each other. And this, we use it in Golden Square as well, so that you can coach each other. Whenever your colleague is stuck, you use this simple solution-focused approaches to get breakthroughs, right? And you do this. So we practice all of these tools in the league sessions, and I think we're getting some early successes over there also. So next time, possibly in another 1 year or so, Sanjay, I'll say it's not 25 out of 200, but maybe a lot more out of the percentages would increase, because see, we have all grown up in that machine paradigm. Even our school system is designed like the machine paradigm, right? As a student getting into the second standard, you are the input. By the end of the second standard, you are the output, and it has to meet certain specification. The specification is given in the report card, right? So that's the machine paradigm. We kind of see this all around us. So it's not because, so that's the reason why for some people, I mean, some you need examples. You need, like you said, some nudges have to be there, some examples have to be there. You need to surround yourself with other people who are also traveling this journey. Though I'd say it's not required. I mean, you can just do it. I did it with my own instinct and reading and so on. You can do it on your own, but if you want to have fellow travelers with you to make the journey easier, by the way, the Liberated Entrepreneurs program is available online now. Everything happens on Zoom, so you're welcome to join this as well.
Okay. Again, how long ago did you begin this experiment at Golden Square?
I think I quit my job way back in I started Golden Square in 1995. And one of the reasons I did that was I got, I knew that it's not going to work out in a corporate environment, because I was working in one of the best companies and I didn't feel work was pleasure. Okay, so that was my motivation to quit. And I've been experimenting since that day. I think I really got into the sense of this at around 2000, 4 years of trying to do things the way typically corporates do it. But I think around 2000 is when I started totally experimenting, totally kind of getting rid of unlearning whatever I had learned earlier and doing things in this manner. So it's actually proven 20 plus years, 20 years of doing something like this. Yeah. Okay. And these have only improved by the way, while I do this program for others, I get reinforced about the techniques, about the different tools, and because my other entrepreneurs question me, they want me to be on top of my game, right, in terms of whatever I'm sharing with them. So it's really helped me grow as well.
Is there a way to quantify the benefits of this approach at Golden Square, whether in terms of top line, bottom line, the ease of recruitment, the brand, or what have you?
I've always found it difficult to do. The reason is, when you say business success, it's a factor of so many things, right? It's the factor of the place you're doing it. Compare Silicon Valley versus Bangalore, right? There's a huge difference. Okay, it depends on the entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs' hunger. Okay, entrepreneurs' ability. It depends on competitive forces. So many things. So I was always looking: is there a benchmark? Is there a way I can compare myself? And I found it actually in BNI, because BNI is the same thing across the world, right? The same thing happening. I've been extremely thrilled with what we have been able to do in BNI Bangalore. And BNI, in a way, is already designed for self-organizing teams. So it's already designed for it. But still, I think BNI Bangalore members would agree that the way we approach members and the way we approach our director team is there's a flavor difference to it. And BNI Bangalore is, I think, if you think of BNI Bangalore as a country, we are out of 75 countries in BNI, we are possibly 21st largest country, okay? So which is big. And if you think of it as executive director, because we are responsible for BNI Bangalore, as executive directors, how big is it? We are possibly the 11th largest, executive directors, we call it, in the world, out of some 800 different executive directors. So that's impressive, I'd say. And the interesting thing is, in BNI also, we actually have a very lean full-time team. Everything happens because of volunteers, because of our BNI members taking up the various roles and so on. We don't have a BNI, what shall I say? Golden Square team is actually the BNI office, right? Taking care of logistics and supplies and things like that. But everything else is virtual, and it's totally volunteer driven. So it's amazing the kind of work our BNI members do. For example, during the COVID situation, some BNI members got together and said, let's create a support system for COVID members and their family and their team members are getting affected. There are 100 members who kind of stepped up, they're volunteering and organizing a support system, figuring out which hospital, which volunteers to help support the families, this, that, all kinds of things, activity happening. And so just give an example. So if at all there's a benchmark, that's the benchmark. And there's some lovely case studies, Sanjay, even in that book, Reinventing Organizations. There's a case about a company called Favi, which is based out of, I think it's a French company. It's into automobile components. While most companies, shifted their production to China, or they closed shop because they were getting, cheap products or cheap, competitors from, they couldn't compete on price with Chinese products. This is one company which has not only survived, but is doing very well. And they just follow these kind of practices. So,
okay.
So there's a lot of, examples like this to kind of show. Oh yeah, in fact, the other company that I talked about, the nursing company, Birdzog, now they are competing with likes, right? Other nursing organizations and so on. And they, operate like this, no hierarchy. In fact, their motto is no hierarchy. And they are kind of just dominating that market.
Okay. Can you hear me, Balaji?
Yeah.
Okay. We are almost at the top of the hour. Last one or two questions. So we've talked about primarily in a corporate context thus far.
Yeah.
Do you think this approach has implications for how the government does things, how religious organizations might do things, or how even in a family, how people interact?
Totally. In fact, in the family is the same thing. Believe in your children. Believe that they are adults. They know what's to be done. They are responsible. Start from that assumption. When it comes to government, it's about, getting your local community involved and, instead of kind of suspecting. So the whole role of suspecting each other, the police suspects the citizen as, the assumption is the citizen is corrupt, right? that whole mindset has to change in terms of thinking of each other as responsible people, and we are on a journey together. I mean, that's what I think the whole idea of democracy is all about. But unfortunately, that's not how it's practiced. So I think shifting away from this machine mindset and getting into a lot more of the living organism mindset and looking at things will totally dramatically change the whole experience we have as business. I mean, whether team members, business owners, as citizens, all of that is going to have, will have a dramatic change if at all people adopt. And I think there are some places where you see, in fact, I was reading this lovely case study about how Taiwan was managing COVID and how citizen participation was encouraged, and there's no one big leader who was deciding stuff, and how participation was taken from the experts and things like that, and they were able to manage COVID so much better, right? Then that's, of course, you'll say there's a small country, there's that, and so on. So we can always find some reason to justify why not to do something in a particular manner. But there's enough evidence out there to kind of say that this is a better way of doing things.
Wonderful. The last question for the session. If what you're doing currently at Golden Square, just for the sake of it, you call it Liberated Organization 1.0. If you were to imagine a Liberated Organization 2.0 in 3, 5, 10 years, where do you think things will evolve? What more further things you would see in the 2.0 version of this?
I mean, the most thrilling part for me would be when our team member actually sets up a completely functional department or a division that I never dreamt of, because still I think that kind of dependence on me for ideas and things like that is still there. And that's the next level of my experiment. Can that happen? So to some extent, I mean, a lot of branch level initiatives, a lot of those things happen by the team members. But the big thing, okay, I'll be thrilled when one of those things happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It has been a full 90-minute session. A lot of insights in this session. I personally have taken a lot from this, and I'll follow up with you in terms of how at AFI, at Asia, we could implement some of your ideas, but also all the different social entrepreneurs in our network. Over the last 8 years, we've got a network of about 1,000 social entrepreneurs. And I think if they experiment, not everybody might come on board fully, but I think they should be aware of this approach, and this can really make a huge difference. Maybe not so much in the financial, we're not saying no to that, but I think just in terms of the level of satisfaction, the joy that you talk at work, I think that's a scarce commodity. And if you can enable people to experience a little bit more joy in their work compartment, I think there'll be a huge service. So thank you again, Balaji. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the lovely opportunity. Thank you so much.